we turn off the sevoflurane, and the fresh gas flows are not increased. So you keep the fresh gas flow at the same concentration. So whatever sevoflurane that is remaining in the circuit would be acting till the procedure lasts. So this technique is called as posting. Now this was a very small child posted for a hip spica. It is not a very painful procedure. So we have done an overpressure induction in this child. Now once the induction is done, what we do is we bring down the flows to around 1 liters per minute. We never go below 1 liter per minute total fresh gas flows with sevoflurane. The flows in this case are reduced to 0.5. We have tied our mask. And once the procedure has just 15 to 20 minutes remaining, we shut off our sevoflurane, but the fresh gas flows are still not increased. So as you can see, the ETCO right now was around 4. The surgeon is doing the hip spica. This is around 5 minutes into the procedure. The end-tidal sevoflurane has come down to around 1.8. Now this is 10 minutes into the procedure. The end-tidal sevoflurane now is around 1.5. And 15 minutes into the procedure, the end-tidal sevoflurane has come down to just about 0.9. So at the end of the procedure, when you remove the mask, you will have an absolutely awake child, an awake crying child with minimum wastage of sevoflurane gas. Now this technique is called as posting. The child is awake and crying. This is what I described. This is volatile induction and maintenance anesthesia. So we are not using any IV induction agents. We are using only sevoflurane, and we are finishing off the case only on sevoflurane with or without a regional block. For awareness, a minimum dial concentration of 1.5% is necessary. This is what the company recommends. We do go down to around 0.6, 0.8 whenever a good regional block has been given. When you have a good regional block, I don't think awareness is a big issue there. For maintenance, generally for increasing the depth of anesthesia, what you can do is you can increase the fresh gas flow. Suppose if you are at fresh gas flow total 1 liter per minute and you have some incision response or something, and you are doing the case only on sevoflurane. So you can increase the fresh gas flow to 3 liters per minute, and you can increase the dial concentration to 8%. This is something called as the sevobolus. In sevobolus, you give 8% sevoflurane with an increased fresh gas flow at 6 liters per minute for around 30 to 45 seconds. So with that will take care of your incision response. Now why sevoflurane? Sevoflurane gives you a lot of flexibility. It decreases the opioid requirements, which is not the case with propofol. The recovery is much faster. Then in neonates, sevoflurane is undoubtedly the best agent because propofol is still doubtful, although we still use propofol. But especially in preterm neonates, sevoflurane is still the best induction agent. Now this is a meta-analysis done in 2012. This is a meta-analysis of 10 studies which includes 729 participants. They have compared overpressure induction versus your traditional tidal volume induction. What they have said is the respiratory complication rate is similar, but the inductions are much faster with your overpressure inductions. This is an Indian study where they have compared tidal volume induction versus overpressure induction. It is done in a total of 100 patients. What they have seen is the induction time with overpressure inductions was around 75 seconds versus 135 seconds for tidal volume inductions. The sevoflurane consumed for overpressure induction was just 2.25 ml versus 4.46 ml. So the sevoflurane consumed is also much lesser. The savings is around 500 rupees per case in a short case, and the complication rates, including your respiratory complications, are similar in both the types of inductions. Now, CO and low fresh gas flows. This is a common controversy. Like people keep asking what is the minimum fresh gas flow that can be kept with sevoflurane. So in USA, the recommended is not below 1 liter per minute. In Canada, it is not below 2 liters per minute. UK and Europe doesn't have any recommendations, and Australia, the recommendation is not below 2 liters per minute. In India, there are no recommendations, but considering this recommendation, we never go below 1 liter per minute. Sevoflurane compound A formation is more with bara-lime. It is rarely seen with the soda lime that we use, and most of the studies are seen in rats. So in human, the concentrations never exceed the toxic dose of 150 ppm. So compound A is not an issue with sevoflurane. So my take-home message is, whatever you do with sevoflurane induction, you should always know your depth of anesthesia. Like the patient should be in the right plane of anesthesia during the procedure. Like whenever you are breaking the child for the first time, he should be very deep to prevent a laryngospasm. Thank you.
That was really an influential talk.
You'll remember the taste for the whole day. So we mask it with the sugar before or sugar later, or before as well as later, or we mask it with some proofs or whatever comes in our hand at that time. We try and do that.
You are giving only midazolam or midazolam with ketamine?
Midazolam plus ketamine also can be given, but Ankit has used midazolam orally in a dose of 0.75 to 1 milligram, even 0.5 is recommended. So if you're not...
I mean, nowadays we are trying to avoid. Less than 3 years there are a lot of studies regarding neuro damage due to ketamine. So till further studies are come up, the studies would be coming up in 2018. Like where we'll come to know the exact role of ketamine, current role in pediatrics. So till then we try and avoid giving ketamine. We give only midazolam, and nowadays we are also using dexmedetomidine in 1 to 2 mics per kg dose orally for pre-medication.
Oral. Do you put airway when you tie up that mask? Keep the baby on spontaneous.
So that is the logic of using this technique. See, whenever you are using any regional anesthesia for pediatric patients, our motto is that the use of your airway intervention should be minimal. So if you are using a regional technique, the procedure should get over in the regional technique. So if you are using say LMA or any tube or even an airway, the dose of sevoflurane or whatever agent you are using would be much higher for the maintenance. Unless it's like the proper depth is maintained, the child would go in a laryngospasm. So preventing an airway is the best. We try and avoid using an airway. What generally happens is once the caudal block is given and once the caudal block has acted, then you try and reduce the sevoflurane to a very low level, lowest possible level. So then airway is usually not required.
Having said this, this has been technique which is mastered over a period of years together. So if you do have an obstructed child, either be free to hold the jaw or then please do insert an airway. Nothing stops us from doing whatever it takes to relieve the tongue fall or the jaw fall. But then as we all are saying the same thing, but remember this has come over a period of years together. So there are certain tricks like extension of the neck, a well-fitting head ring, a well-tied mask. Hence, so to each its own. Then we won't take much of your time now.
Minor things which are involved when you are
well-known versatile anesthetist, and actually he is also from Nasik. He is Nasikite. Presently, he is the director of Children Anesthesia Services in Mumbai. He is well known as a CAS group. He is a co-program leader for fellowship in pediatric anesthesia, and he is also co-author of book on mechanical ventilation in pediatric age with internationally famous pediatric anesthetist and intensivist Dr. Professor Marara. Dr. Philip is a well-known invited faculty in various national as well as international conferences. His special areas of interest are pediatric airway, regional vascular access, as well as pediatric cardiac anesthesia. Apart from all these, he is especially known for his extraordinary helping nature towards not only his colleagues but also patients. Today he will be highlighting on two different topics, and his first topic is use of supraortic airway devices in pediatrics, and he will be also talking on role of curved tubes in pediatrics. So I will request him to start his first talk.
Thank you. He's a good friend of mine because since we long time we are together. Okay. Before starting my lecture, how many of you are using supraglottic devices in a pediatric patients? And there are a lot of, if you see, there is a lot of evolution in supraglottic airway devices also. And if you see over the period, last 30 years, it has been various changes into the supraglottic airway devices, which initially when we had a first generation, then second generation supraglottic airway devices which has come. And what we say, I can say that lots of variations and newer devices which have come into our clinical practice. And today I'm going to talk about a few things and how we can apply clinically into our practice. Apart from the induction, there are other things where, yeah, and even today I usually think about, is it, since the supraglottic devices are available, is it really needed for an intubation? The endotracheal tubes are needed. So there are a few things I'm going to highlight and which supraglottic airway devices which we can use in a clinical scenario, and some video demonstration of the few supraglottic airway devices I want to talk about. So coming to this is the survey was done in the United States and various countries, which found that even a non-pediatric anesthesiologist people and the paramedics people are very familiar with the using of supraglottic airway devices. I will talk about yesterday instead, because we had yesterday orthopedic workshop, live regional, so I was there to give anesthetize the patient in Jupiter Hospital. And I finished it around 1 o'clock in the middle of the night. And before leaving the hospital, I just thought I'd meet my pediatric colleague downstairs because he was in the casualty. And then he suddenly called me, "Sir, please run because the patient has been collapsed." That's why I have to going to highlight this incident, because how it makes the difference to the life of the patients when you have these supraglottic airway devices, when the paramedic people or any the non-anesthesiologist people, they can use. Suddenly I started CPR, and in our casualty we have a supraglottic airway devices, LMS, which are available. And I made sure that in all our pediatric department, even in ICU and critical care, wherever we have a supraglottic airway devices which are available. And then I started, it's very difficult because I'm a pediatric and last 16 years I'm practicing only pediatric anesthesia. And yesterday, that 50-year-old lady, he said, "Sir, please just help." And I started a CPR. And I told him, so he said, "It's very difficult intubation." I said, "Just remove the LMA and insert it. We could save that lady." And the morning only when I was leaving for the Nasik, and then the resident called me, said the patient is fine, we extubated, and this is how the supraglottic devices which really helps. So this was the survey which done, and if you see, a lot of people nowadays they have started using supraglottic LMS in our clinical practice, and there are various advantages and which really helps in the practice. So coming to this update, as today's my topic is that what are the newer supraglottic airway devices? So there are small variations, but which helps into our clinical practice, like newer airway devices which are currently available into our clinical practice is like AirQ and then the Ambu, because everybody is aware that the supraglottic devices are used as a conduit for the intubations. Then nowadays we are starting using in the laparoscopic surgeries and even in prone position how we can do. And so this studies which demonstrated and the various clinical uses of the supraglottic airway devices. So what are the devices which are available? The first generations like what we have a classical laryngeal mask airway, and there are other which have got a lot of advantages over the first generation devices like iGel. We are commonly using, then Supreme LMS and flexible elements, and I'm going to highlight about how it has changed our practice regarding the AirQ, which is a really good intubating scopes, and I'm going to demonstrate how we do the intubations with the AirQ supraglottic airway device. And then the Ambu-Aura ones and the Proceed element. I think so. Proceed, please. So Proceed. So everybody, I think so commonly, a lot of people they are aware about how the Proceed element